Thank you for joining us today. As an alternative to our typical school grounds workshop, Vicki Wallace and I decided to develop a series of informational videos that highlight the importance of cultural practices involved in athletic field management. These videos complement our recently updated BMP document, which provides research-based guidelines for managing cool season athletic fields, particularly pesticide-free sports fields most effectively. There are 5 cultural practices important in athletic field management. These practices are mowing, fertilization, irrigation, cultivation, and pest management. Today we're focusing on cultivation, particularly hollow tine cultivation and solid tine cultivation. The importance of cultivation is unfortunately often overlooked, particularly on school fields starting at pre-K through high school. The reasons for this oversight are different for everyone, including not understanding the importance of cultivation, limited time or labor to complete the work, and lack the proper equipment or confusion regarding the proper equipment to use. Our objective today is to provide some clarity on these potential issues and improve the quality and safety of the playing surfaces you manage. The repetitive impact on the surface pushes the soil particles closer and closer together, which we refer to as soil compaction. Soil compaction can restrict root growth, water movement, and gas exchange with the atmosphere, all things that are important for a healthy turfgrass stand. Additionally, an increase in soil compaction often leads to a higher surface hardness, which is associated with an increased risk of lower extremity injuries and potential head injuries. Soil compaction is a normal consequence of athletic field use. We just have to manage it, and we do that through the process of cultivation. What we have here is what we refer to as a hollow tine cultivation unit. We've set up this as a demonstration. We've got solid tines on the left for demonstration purposes, and we'll talk about that later today. On the right side of the machine here, we have hollow tines. These are what I consider most desirable from a soil compaction alleviation standpoint, is because we're physically removing soil from the surface. That does a couple very positive things for us. We're creating that void, which stays open. It creates water movement, gas exchange. We're bringing that soil up. We are able to return those cores to the surface to help us maintain surface drainage, smooth playing surface, all desirable things. It also physically removes organic matter accumulation from the surface in less worn areas, which is very desirable because we want to reduce that organic matter accumulation over time. So that's some of the real benefits of that hollow tine. It does create a little bit more work for us, and we'll show you that later. But again, very desirable. On the left-hand side here, we have solid tines. These are a little less effective at reducing surface compaction. However, we're still creating that void, which may close up a little quicker. We're still getting that gas exchange. We're still creating space for water movement. But the big advantage to these are you're not creating that additional work for yourself, returning the cores. If you have rocky soils, these are less apt to bend. If you do have a rocky site, it may be good to start with something like a solid tine, and with time, as you get those rocks out, move to hollow tines. But those are some of the advantages and disadvantages with hollow versus solid tines. One of the things we really want to emphasize today is, if you're able to swing it from a budget standpoint, is getting a power takeoff driven unit. So this is a shaft coming off of the engine of the tractor. This is mechanically operating the unit, so we're really maximizing our benefits in terms of compaction alleviation, water movement, reducing surface hardness, gas exchange. These units do a really nice job of having a consistent depth of penetration regardless of soil conditions, and really maximizes the benefits that we're trying to emphasize today. What we have here is 1 square foot, and really emphasizes the differences nicely between a drum type unit and a power takeoff driven unit. Number 1, depth of penetration. So we're at a good 3-inch depth there, nearly twice of what we were getting with the drum unit. And then we got 6 holes by 6 holes, giving us 36 holes per square foot, which really maximizes what we're trying to achieve with cultivation in terms of air movement, water movement, and reduction of organic matter. All right, what we have here is an example of an oscillating aerification unit. This is a nice option for folks that don't want to spend as much on a unit like this, so more affordable than some of the other PTO driven type units. One huge advantage to this is the fact that you can operate this without the PTO engage. You can cover a lot of ground in a very short period of time, much faster than some of the traditional PTO driven hollow tine, solid tine units. The other advantage is in really compacted soil, you can engage the power takeoff, and this gives you a lateral motion while those tines are physically in the ground. So you really get a lot of compaction alleviation. From a disadvantage standpoint, these are solid tines, so we're not physically removing organic matter while we're actively cultivating like we are with hollow tine. What we have here is an example of a drum type unit. This is our least desirable of the ones we've talked about thus far today, primarily because we don't have the power takeoff power of the tractor. We're pulling it with a good sized utility vehicle or a small tractor, but if we have severely compacted soils, which we often have in our sports fields, we're 100% dependent on the weights for tine penetration depth, because we don't have the PTO power from the tractor to keep that very consistent. So you're not getting a real consistent depth of penetration. The other challenge is we don't get a lot of holes per square foot with these units. So from an advantage standpoint, we're getting some voids, and we're also getting core, so we're physically removing organic matter. But again, probably our least desirable unit of the ones we talked about today, but certainly better than absolutely nothing from a cultivation standpoint. As you can see here, put a pen through one of the core holes here. We're only about 1.5 to 2 inch penetration depth, which is not ideal. You can see here the cores are about the same length, which you would expect. And then also we touched on the broad spacing. We only have 4 holes per square foot here, which is not desirable. We want to have a large number of holes per square foot to maximize our benefits of cultivation. What we have here is an example of a deep tine unit. As you can see here, the size of these tines are much bigger or longer than the previous units we've looked at. The advantage here is you're alleviating subsurface compaction layers, which can form when we're only cultivating that 3 to 4 inch depth all the time. Consider using a subcontractor for something like this, because the frequency of use is much less than some of the units that we've looked at previously. What we have here is an area we passed over with a deep tine unit, and it's not so much the number of holes per square foot that we're interested in, but the depth of penetration. You can see over 6 inches here, what we want to do to reduce our subsurface compaction.